So, I did a thing. Let's chat. Everybody, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Yes, you have reached the Modest Audiophile channel. My name is Mark, and yes, I did a thing. Welcome to the family. The new Super Linton from Wharfedale. That's what we're going to discuss today. I'll be honest. I did this video about, I've been living with this for about a week and a day now. Today is Sunday, the 2nd of February. I received this last Saturday, which I think was the 25th if I'm not mistaken. So I tried to do a video, I don't know, maybe about 3 days in. I'd given it a little bit of a listen and then recorded what I needed to record. I put it on the computer to get ready to edit it, but yet I was still listening to this thing. And by the time I got to a couple records that we'll discuss today, I had to scrap everything I did and redo this thing because this speaker is just blowing my mind. In fact, if you see any bits and stuff falling off the ceiling, it might be bits of my brain because my head has exploded about 5 times in the last week listening to this thing. All right, so this is what we're going to do today. I've only been listening to this for about a week, so I just want to give you a real quick kind of what I've thought about living with this thing for the last week. There are better websites, there are better YouTube channels out there if you want to do a deep dive on the bits and bytes and the technology and all of that, comparing the Super Linton to the Linton or the Super Linton to anything else. Go to the same videos that I checked out, right? Crutchfield's got one, a couple of the big retailers have one. Randy over at Cheap Audio Man's got one, Skylabs has got one, Darko's got one. That's pretty much about it. Maybe a couple more. But there aren't a lot out there because, frankly, this thing, even though it was announced, I think, in maybe October, November, they really weren't shipping in any great numbers until recently. In fact, I placed an order for this on the last day they were running a special. So, yeah, I spent $24.99 for the pair of these things. But I got it in on January 5th, which was the last day. If you ordered it, you got these stands for free. Free. Quote unquote free. So yeah, I wound up taking the plunge at that time and placing my order. And I got these things 20 days later. So very stoked, very happy, and we'll do, again, a quick video on what am I hearing from these things? You know, coming from somebody who's been living with the Wharfedale Denton 85th anniversary edition speakers for the last 2+ years. We're keeping it in the family, so we're not going to talk about the differences between, say, apples and flamingos. We're going to talk about apples and pineapples. Yeah, that sounds about right. So, like I said, if you want to go drill down on the technology, go elsewhere. They're better suited to explain to you the differences between, again, the older model Linton and any other speakers out there in the same price range. Taking notes, gotta keep looking at the notes and keep the loony on the path here. So, why did I buy these speakers? Well, I guess you gotta go back to, I've been living with the Denton 85th Anniversary Edition speakers for a better part of 2.5 years now, and I love those speakers. Those speakers really were the first speakers that really opened up my ears to the possibility of what a 2-channel hi-fi system could provide as it pertained to Soundstage and Imaging. I was blown away by those speakers countless times. I have absolutely zero regrets owning those things. Fabulous, fabulous speaker. But what I noticed what was happening over the course of the last couple months was that I missed that feeling of having my jaw drop on the floor. I've been ordering, better quality records, we'll say, quality, getting more of those quote-unquote audiophile records. And yeah, they were knocking my socks off, but I just felt that I was missing something. I think really what it is, I hadn't been on the hunt for a while. So a couple of my buddies, they had, in the last couple of years, they had swapped out their systems 3 times. And I had stuck with mine. I have a modestly priced hi-fi system. I like it. It's pretty good. So I didn't need to change anything. But that being said, I was kind of living vicariously through some of my buddies. And one of them said, listen, I said, listen, I think I'm going to go for a turntable this year. That might be my big change. And he goes, you may get more bang for your buck going with a new speaker. And the more I thought about it, who could I argue? I knew these things had come out. They were announced again in October, November last year. I purposefully did not watch any of the review videos because if I did, I was going to be in trouble. And sure enough, but I did. I waited until after the new year, and then I started watching some of those review videos. And yeah, sucked me in, and immediately I took the plunge. So yeah, ordered them, got them 20 days later, and now been living with them for a week and a day. That's why I bought them. I wanted to have that jaw-dropping experience, mind-blown experience. And these things are remarkable, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. How do they sound? And I'm going to do it by the way of bringing up a couple instances of what I listened to and really what were the things that shook me to my core in some instances. All right, before we get into, again, how this thing sounds, let's talk a little bit about how this thing looks. I mean, let's be honest, it's gorgeous, and that's one of the reasons why I purchased the Wharfedale Denton 85th anniversary prior to this. That, along with this, are both in mahogany finish. You can also get it in walnut, and you can get it with black oak, I think it's called. And let's be real, this thing is absolutely beautiful. I'll put hopefully some nice B-roll here so you can drool over it, just like I was looking to drool over somebody's B-roll of these speakers. Might get you into trouble, so just fair warning. So yeah, it's mahogany. The grill cover here comes off on the posts. It's not magnetized. That's okay. Pretty easy to take off. And here you go. Absolutely gorgeous. The fit and finish of these things is second to none. It's a piece of art unto itself. It is a piece of furniture. And let me tell you, between the speaker and the stand, this thing weighs close to 85 pounds. Fantastic. Also on the floor, I'll show some pictures down there later, is you've got, it came with the nice discs on the bottom, right? So you got the spikes, and the discs look fantastic. And it's not so slippery on the bottom where you nudge it, it's going to move. No, it's pretty good. All right, so let's talk about how this thing sounds. So the first thing I did was, immediately I wanted to put on a couple records that I knew, right? So knew like the back of my hand. Let's see how they sound different. So first thing I put on was Rumors, the Analog Productions 75th anniversary audiophile series, right? It's a 45 RPM. In fact, I did a review about it last year or the year before. Yeah, last year. And I remarked that album made my Denton speakers sound like towers. These things, the first thing I noticed was, it wasn't Soundstage, wasn't imaging, it was John McVie's bass. Certainly coming into the chain. And it got down quite a bit lower. Of course it should. The Dentons, I think, had a roll-off of 40 hertz, where these have a roll-off of 32 hertz, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I noticed the bass first and foremost before I noticed anything else. It was getting down to places that I was not hearing before. And you feel it as much as you hear it. So yeah, bass was the very first thing that I noticed. So after listening to Rumors, I wanted to change it up a bit. Second thing I put on is I put on the DMP-A6, the Eversolo, so I went digital for a little bit. And I put on Led Zeppelin 2, and I wanted to hear Whole Lotta Love, right? To get that hurdy-gurdy type of soundstage and imaging and all of that. You know what I'm talking about. I was not disappointed. Let me tell you, it was fantastic. And what I started to notice, and we'll talk more about it here in this brief video, is that from a soundstage perspective, what I was hearing more information at the outer reaches of the soundstage, as well as everything else in between. But really, as it pertained to Whole Lotta Love, right, which really stretches out that soundstage, I was hearing more information at the outer reaches. So, meaning that if my soundstage is 4 feet, I'm hearing stuff 4 feet outside of the speaker. I was hearing more information back there as I was hearing more information out there compared to the Denton 85s. All right. After Zeppelin 2, I put on music from Big Pink by the band. It was right after I heard that Garth Hudson was the last surviving member of the band to pass away. I think he was 87, 88 maybe. So I put on Chest Fever, and that's how I was feeling at the time. Last week, not gonna lie, I had a brutal cold. You can hear a little bit of remnants of it now in my voice, but last week was tough. So yeah, the Chest Fever was lush. It was full. It was bigger than I could have imagined, and mid-range detail was really coming out well with that song. Fantastic. And then I wanted to hear a bit more girth, a bit more punch, so I put on AC/DC For Those About to Rock, and this was a 24-bit 96 kilohertz FLAC file, I believe. And yeah, it was all that and then some. So yeah, it's what I needed at the time. I got punched in the face, tossed around a little bit, slapped here, slapped there, and was left wanting more. So really, really good. And granted, this is after a couple days. So these speakers, everything that I'm hearing from others, as well as my own experience with the Dentons, is that it's going to take about 30-40 hours to truly break in. But I'm hearing this good of bass up front and this much punchiness up front. I was so happy because I know it's only going to get better with time. And even in the short 1 week that I've been listening to it, yeah, it's really opened up. All right, so after For Those About to Rock, I wanted to hear a little bit of acoustic blues. So, and I didn't have a lot of time, so I stuck with the digital files, and I put on Keith Richards' Cross-Eyed Heart. And I was listening to the title track, which is just Keith in the room with his acoustic, doing an acoustic blues, Chicago acoustic blues style. And yeah, he's there. He's bigger. There was more weight to his vocals. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. There was more presence of his vocals, more weight. Yeah, I could say easily, oh, he's in the room. Yeah, he was. He was about the distance between me and you, the camera. Really, really good. I'm looking forward to listening to more acoustic albums and songs as the weeks transpire here. So then I put everything away, and then did some work and stuff like that. Got to do that. I would have this playing in the background just to run the speakers, right? Just to try and break these things open as best I can. And then a couple days later, I put on this Little Feat. Feats don't fail me now. In fact, I went. If you've been watching the channel, you notice I don't have bandages on my hand anymore. I got my stitches taken out, and there's a record store close by to where I got my stitches taken out. So I went in there, again, looking for some used records, and I had just come off of doing the Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley video, Robert Palmer, Lowell George, check it out here. And I was in that toe tapping, head bopping mindset. So yeah, I went and got this. Excellent record. This is an original copy. I spent all of $14.99 for it. But the point that I'm getting at is that I put this thing on, and all of a sudden, the first thing I noticed was the imaging, the soundstage. I mean, feats don't fail me now. I don't think it's necessarily an audiophile record, or at least isn't discussed in those terms. But I'll tell you, it jumped out at me. The soundstage and imaging, the depth, the clarity, the crispness. It's like I had a center channel speaker and I don't. The imaging was dancing. Talk about, yeah, it was holographic. It really made me notice what the heck was going on here. So this, by the way, this record is so good. Yes, I will be doing a review on it hopefully the next couple weeks because, yeah, I had a blast listening to that. Right after that, I put on the Manassas album. First with Stephen Stills' Manassas, that one, and sure enough, everything was better than I had remembered it playing it on the previous speakers. Everything. Bigger, more depth, more detail. So yes, let's talk about the tone stack here. You're getting deeper bass for sure. You're getting more responsive bass, more punch in that bass. And again, that's only going to get better with time. What I really noticed coming out of Feats Don't Fail Me Now is the mid-range was pushed forward. I was hearing some gorgeous mid-range in a lot more detail than I was accustomed hearing this album. And again, these tweeters here shared, they are the same tweeters from what I understand as in their flagship heritage model, the Dovedale. And yeah, I'm hearing it. I'm speechless here. The differences are staggering. Staggering. It's like I'm listening to music for the first time again. And that's what we're all here for, right? We want to be able to get more out of the grooves, more out of the file, more out of soundstage and imaging. At least for me, that's really what that's what I keep coming back for, is blow my mind. And yeah, this thing has been blowing my mind. So after I put on Feats Don't Fail Me Now, and then I did Stephen Stills and Manassas. I had to rethink everything. I had already recorded a video for this, and I'm like, no, scrap it. I need to articulate a bit more. So the next thing I did was, a couple days later, I put on this. I don't know if you could see, yeah, it's Abbey Road. It's the Giles Martin remix from the 50th anniversary edition. I gotta say, whew, I had a brand new album. Now I've heard this mix before. I've got the box set and been very, very happy with it. Very happy personally with all of Giles Martin's stuff. That's just my opinion. This is where this video is kind of focused a little bit on this album, because this thing was emotional for me. Man, before we get into not a review of Abbey Road per se, but really what I was getting out of how I can articulate some of the nuances and the different sounds that I was getting out of these speakers, how it pertains to Abbey Road. If you've never heard Abbey Road, I'm sorry. Go listen to it, and then you'll know what I'm talking about. All right. So, but first, before we get into that, just a couple things. As I mentioned earlier, you're getting more bass. It's deeper. You feel it as much as hear it. There's better weight behind the image, if that makes sense. More presence, better weight behind it, a lot more detail, a lot more articulation, a lot more isolation of instruments in space. This thing is a image monster. It's ridiculous how good this image is. More detail reaches the outer edges of the soundstage, right? I think I talked about that earlier. The detail is not, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. You're hearing more detail in the entirety of the soundstage, but I'm noticing more detail coming all the way to the edges of the soundstage, if that makes sense. Off-axis is very good. I don't have these, I'm listening there. I push this in closer right now. Typically it's going to be a little bit farther left, but generally speaking, they're about 8.5, 9 feet apart, and I sit 8.5, 9 feet away, right behind the camera over there. Yeah, so off access listening is pretty good. I mean, I was still hearing stuff that I was still hearing more stuff off axis than I was with the Dentons. A lot more subtleties and nuance. I plugged in. I put on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon 50th Anniversary Edition, and the Great Gig in the Sky, right? The vocals, so much more subtleties, so much more nuance was going on in that song. Blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. All right, so let's get back to Abbey Road and really what I was pulling out of these speakers that I'd never heard before. Okay, maybe, hopefully that makes sense for you. So Abbey Road, the first thing, you put it on, Come Together. Immediately, it's bigger. It's got more power behind it, more weight, more definition. Paul's bass lines are deeper, rounder, fuller. Ringo is more vivid in his entire kit. Is just more vivid in detail. You can see it with less effort. You can see it in your mind's eye on where all these instruments are. I put here, I'm so happy that this record sounds as good as it does. I always thought that, Abbey Road's always sounded good. My Beatles records have always sounded good, but they never sounded as great as, say, some of my Simon and Garfunkel records. I am so happy that Abbey Road on this album, on these speakers, just shocked me at how good it sounds. Ridiculous. So happy. In fact, it got emotional at times listening to some of these songs, and it hasn't happened to me in a long time. These speakers brought out emotional connection to music in which I hadn't, again, experienced in quite some time, and that's what I was hoping for when I bought these things. As far as Maxwell Silver Hammer, the cymbals, they're so much more real than I could have imagined. And again, the Denton's 85th anniversary are no slouch. Those are great speakers. But everything is just bigger and has more presence than the Soundstage and Imaging than from those speakers. Incredible. I'm getting tingles just talking about it right now. And, oh, darling. The backing vocals are ridiculously good. Backing vocals, it's like they're all new. This album was an entirely new album for me. Again, I go back to nuances and to an emotional feeling of hearing those backing vocals. Just gorgeous. Octopus's Garden is so good. I put so good. And again, emotional for me. Now I'm watching the Get Back special again, and it's maybe why the song was a bit emotional, because in the Get Back special, you see Ringo for the very first time kind of saying, hey, I got a song I'm working on, and he's playing it on piano, and then George Harrison comes kind of sliding over with his acoustic guitar and says, what you got going on over there? And anyway, it's a great moment, and I kept thinking about that while I was listening to this song. It's one of my favorite songs on the album anyway, but again, on these speakers, just poof, awesome, awesome. I Want You, Mammoth. More detail and layering than I've ever experienced before. I'll leave it at that. Mammoth. Here Comes the Sun, Lush. Very holographic. When you close your eyes and you see it in your mind's eye, very holographic image of Here Comes the Sun. And of course, if you watch the channel, you know I'm a sucker for hand claps. And yeah, they just jumped out in space. These instruments, more so than I'd ever heard before, they are literally in space. And it's not just depth from here back. I'm hearing for the first time on Abbey Road, I'm hearing, the images coming forward of the speakers and into the room as well. So I'm getting stuff, hanging around in space here, all the way towards the back wall. Didn't have that before. Really, really good. The song Because, The arpeggios, if I said that right, coming out of left, which I think is some form of an organ, on the right is a guitar. They're crispier, they're more realistic, and let's be real. We get into those harmonies, goosebumps. Because the song "Because" on the Wharfedale Super Lintons, oh my gosh, wonderful stuff. You Never Give Me Your Money, right there. Paul playing piano on the left. It's right here where I'm sitting. It's in the room with you. Good stuff. It was like a new song I heard. You hear everything. Sun King. All right, Sun King comes on. It starts with the ending of the solo of the previous song, and it is as wet with reverb. It is wet. It's tangible as the as what I see, at least in my mind's eye, with the crickets and the frogs. I always think of the Sun King, for whatever reason, in a very wet atmosphere. And oh, perfect. It goes, and then it goes into, you know, Me, Mr. Mustard, polyurethane Pam, and I put just bigger, better, fuller, especially on Pam. The John's guitar, acoustic guitar, has. The strings have the attack. You can hear and see in your mind's eye the attack more. You can, yeah, just more realistic. All right, I'll leave it at that. We get into Golden Slumbers, and I just put much more complex than I had ever heard it before. In fact, it is the perfect recording. Wonderful. Everything I just said, just put that right into Golden Slumbers, and you get a pretty good understanding of what the heck that thing was sounding like. And then I was spent after this point. I didn't even want to write anything more. I was getting excited for the end, right, with the drum solo and the guitar solo. Let me just say this. It was, by hearing the last song, well, before Her Majesty, hearing the end on Abbey Road made me immediately justify going, yep, these speakers are worth their weight in gold, and they certainly did not disappoint on the end. Ringo's kit is, your soundstage starting to wrap around you at this point. It's just, oh my gosh. And then when when George, Paul, and John start hitting their guitar solos, or, you know, playing off of each other, 1, 2, and 3, the space between them in the soundstage was better than I'd ever experienced before. Again, what a rush listening to Abbey Road on these Wharfedale Super Lintons. It was like I heard the album for the very first time again, and that's a feeling I was getting with just about everything I was listening to. Wonderful album. Real quick after that, I'm like, all right, I'm not ready to stop yet, so I put on this. This is George Harrison's 50th anniversary of All Things Must Pass. I didn't go for the Uber box set or anything like that. No, I just wanted the records, and that's what I got here. Generally speaking, when I was listening to this on my other system, I've had this now for about 2 years, and when I was listening to this through the Dentons, I liked the album. It was okay. I wasn't doing cartwheels. I'd listen to this every once in a while when I wanted to hear, when I was getting to my Beatles zone. In fact, typically what I'll do is, from time to time, I will listen to what could have been, right? I listen to the first albums that the Beatles did as solo artists. I'll listen to this, I'll listen to John Lennon's first one, and I'll listen to Paul McCartney's first one. This one just never wowed me. It was good, but it never blew me away. In fact, when this first came out, there was a lot of crap online about how this album sucks and the remastering is blah, blah, blah. All right. I never agreed with that. I thought it sounded fine, but it was blowing me away? No. Put it on here. New album. What did I write about this thing? Yeah, My Sweet Lord. And I just put these effing acoustics. These effing acoustics were huge and more articulate and more detailed and just awesome. And this, of course, George's slide coming in is tangible. You can taste it. This album sounds really good. Now, I'm wondering, you know, people don't remaster these things to have them sound like crap, right? They don't put all that time and money in to make it sound like crap. But maybe sometimes we're not hearing it on the proper setup. It's nobody's fault. It's just we have what we have. So before, you know, I never flame anything out there when it comes to, oh, that's garbage. No, you know, different strokes for different folks, right? But sometimes it might just be a subtle difference in your system which will open up a new or new old album for you. So yeah, again, these speakers made this thing sound incredible. A lot more detailed than I ever remembered, a lot more enjoyable. I can crawl inside this music, and it was really, really happy about that. Yeah, the only thing I is these speakers allow me to see further inside the music than ever before. I've always remarked on previous videos that I've done is that, you know, I like to get in, sit down, have the soundstage and imaging surround me, take a look around. What's going on with the soundstage? Oh, I haven't heard that before. This thing, these speakers just make it that much more easier. It is more effortless to close your eyes and start to pick out where these instruments are in space. You don't have to struggle at all to, maybe that's not the right word, but you don't have to put any effort in whatsoever to get real enjoyment out of the soundstage and imaging. It is so easy. These speakers serve it up so well that, again, you just kick back in your chair and go for a ride. And that's the best way I can explain this. These speakers will take you for a ride to places that you've never seen before. At least I haven't. I am so happy I bought them 1 week and 1 day in. I feel that the price is justified as far as what you're getting. Now, I'll be selling the Denton speakers. The good news on those things is that they're pre-broken in, everybody, so I will try to get that out. I may even do a short video on those Denton speakers before I put them up for sale, because, again, those speakers are fabulous. Is anything else I want to mention here? No, that's pretty much it for now. I want to get back to listening to some more music. So with that, I hope everybody's well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope now that we have one more video out there of the Super Linton for people to take a look at. And if you want to go listen to specs or go watch somebody talk about specs, speeds and feeds, bits and bytes, there are better ones out there. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Be well, and I can't wait to come back with a new review.